which is a whole new set of problems because our country has given kids the right to make those kind of decisions. As a school teacher, I could not give my kids an aspirin without parental authority, but I could take a kid to an abortion clinic without anything said about it. And those are the kind of people that you and I and many others have put into office. People who would put those laws. And somebody says, it doesn't matter. We get caught up on economics when we need to get caught up on life issues. What the Word of God says when we go into those booths. And we need to vote in people who will stand and speak for life. Because if they don't speak for life, they're speaking for death. And they've gone so far. Not only do they want your kids, but they want what's inside your kids to be aborted, even if you don't want to. And you don't even have the right to know. As a matter of fact, they developed an adversarial relationship between parents and their kids. And that was never God's intent. And yet that's what we see happening. Court decisions in America and permissive abortion laws in other nations do all of the above. They present a complete about-face, a total rejection of one of the core values of Western men, an acceptance of a new ethics in which life is only a relative value. No longer will every human have a right to live simply because he or she exists. A human will now be allowed to exist only if he measures up to a certain standard of independence, physical perfection, or utilitarian usefulness to others. This is a momentous change that strikes at the root of Western civilization. It makes no difference to vaguely assume that human life is more human post-born than pre-born. What is critical is to judge it to be or not to be. Human life, by a measure of more or less human, one can easily and logically justify infanticide and euthanasia. By the measure of economics or social usefulness, the ghastly atrocities of Hitlerism, mass murder came to be. One cannot help but be reminded of the anguished comments of a condemned Nazi judge, now listen to this, who said to an American judge at the Nuremberg trial, "I never knew it would come to this." The American judge answered simply, "It came to this the first time you condemned an innocent life." And then George Santayana said, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to relive it." And so those are kind of like secular arguments in the fact that sometimes people don't want to hear the Bible, okay? But we can go outside the Bible. We can have a strong argument if we get the terms right. If we set the stage and we determine what life is and we tell them what human life is and we can demonstrate it to them. And I think one of the strongest things is ask them, how would they feel if they had been aborted? It's amazing that those who live and want to live the most lavishly and luxuriously want to deny life to such a small child and to do the things they do. A couple of other things I want to read to you, and I'm sorry if this is laborious to you and it's not my usual preaching style, but I just don't want you to miss it, and I trust to God that you understand this. We will get to the scriptures before our time is up. It says, and this is what John MacArthur says, "As we come this morning to the matter of abortion, before I take you into scripture, we look more closely at what the Bible has to say. It is probably fitting for us to get some kind of a grasp on the issue itself, and so I want to address that if I may for a moment, what I'm going to say to you may sound like an art when it is, blah, blah, blah. But then he says, to sum up what we're experiencing with regard to abortion in America, we could simply say America as a nation has highly committed by law and by practice to form, listen to this, mass murder." How many do you think it takes to establish mass murder? 5,000? 10,000? 20,000? 30,000? Well, today we have killed over 50, or actually worldwide, we have killed over 75 million babies have been aborted since the first since the Supreme Court said it would be lit. 75 million killed. If that's not mass murder, it's more than all the people that were killed in all the wars that we have and all that Hitler and Stalin was able to kill. It far exceeds all those. And yet we say that we are a civilized nation. Are we? Are we? And that is really the bottom line. This nation, which prides itself on humanitarianism, is a murderous cycle of violence that makes the Nazi Holocaust look mild by comparison. Here's another statistic. Nearly 2 million babies are born a year in America. Every third child conceived now is being murdered. Among teenage women, there are 736 abortions for every 1,000 births. Among married women, abortion now exceeds birth. More babies are killed than are born. Some will tell us that there is an abortion about every 15 seconds in America. And we get all excited about what's happening over in Iran. Only 4,000, of course, if it was my 4,000, one of my kids, I'd probably be a little bit more concerned. But we kill this many people in our own nation a year. How can we cry about other things? It's disingenuous. Life is life, and death is death. Listen to this. In some metropolitan hospitals in the major cities of our nation, abortions far outnumber live births. Planned Parenthood has gone so far as to say this is nothing more than a means of let me say this again. Planned Parenthood has gone so far as to say this, that it is nothing more than a means of preventing disease, pregnancy being noted as a disease. If you think that sounds far-fetched, I want to remind you of a paper by Dr. Willard Chase from the Planned Parenthood Physicians Association. The title of the paper is Abortion as Treatment for Unwanted Pregnancy. The second sexually transmitted disease. You see, that's why it's so important for us to define the terms. If we let them get away with defining the terms like that, certainly they have a free attaboy. But if you and I can redefine the terms, how do you call having a baby or getting pregnant a sexually transmitted disease? Give me a break. Pregnancy then is seen by Planned Parenthood as a sexually transmitted disease that needs to be cured by abortion. Planned Parenthood is somewhere approaching 1,000 abortion clinics, doing somewhere approaching 75,000 murders a year, are receiving millions of dollars of support from the U.S. government and United Way and other agencies like that. And that's why I say, give your money to Annie Armstrong. Give your money to Lottie Moon. Give your money to us. We, the Southern Baptists, we do not take your money and give it to United Way and other agencies that promote abortion and killing babies. And that's why it's so important as good stewards that we are good stewards by giving our money to someone that we know will take care of what God takes care of, and that's human life. Our nation and other nations of the world are frankly wiping out, listen to this, an entire generation of human beings in mass infanticide. It is estimated that perhaps as many as 75 billion babies will be murdered this year around the world. 75 million, that's probably conservative, more than all the deaths and all the wars in history, and I've already said that. But the point of the matter is this. Today, we are having financial problems, right? Do you realize that all those babies that have been aborted since 1970, if they were alive today, the impact that they could have on society? Do you know that some of the babies and some of the people that have been killed and so forth, some of them could have been someone who had the cure for cancer? Some of them had the cure for all kinds, even our economic crisis. Just think, they would be taxpayers. Do you know one of the problems that's going to be facing you and I as we get grayer and grayer is whether they'll have money to pay our Social Security. And you know why? Because the rolls of people taking is greater than the rolls of people putting in. And that's one of the reasons why Congress and congressmen are trying to bring in illegals so that they can bridge the gap between what's being brought in for Social Security and what we need to continue to float Social Security. And so for you and I to understand that God, there's a downside always to sin. And we are seeing it today. some of you, and I really wrestled in my heart about using this, but some of you who are politically savvy heard Reverend Wright. And I don't want to legitimize him, but he did say one thing that you and I need to understand. And I'm not going to say it like he's